Golden Ray disaster. Launched in August 2016, the Golden Ray was a massive cargo ship designed for transporting automobiles. With a length of 660 feet and towering 17 stories high, it served as a roll-on, roll-off vessel, essentially functioning as a giant parking garage for cars and trucks. Owned by Hyundai Glovis, the ship embarked on its journey from the port of Brunswick, Georgia on September 8, 2019, loaded with around 4,300 brand new Hyundai and Kia vehicles, along with cars from various US and European car companies. Unfortunately, disaster struck less than an hour after departure. The Golden Ray lost power and tilted on its side, causing water to rush into the hull. The multinational crew of 24, mainly from South Korea and the Philippines, faced a chaotic scene, with 4 engineers trapped in the ship's lower compartments, battling rapidly rising water and scorching temperatures. A distress call prompted a swift response, with tugboats, taxis, and the Coast Guard rushing to assist. Jonathan Tennant, sent to the pilot ship, played a crucial role in coordinating the rescue efforts. It took 36 hours to rescue the trapped crew, with Tennant persuading the Korean captain to leave the ship and work with the Coast Guard. While the crew was saved, the fate of the vehicles on board was grim. The ship's instability was attributed to improperly loaded vehicles, fluctuating weight, incorrect ballast tank levels, and improperly closed doors that allowed water ingress. The disaster resulted in a $200 million salvage and recovery operation. Over nearly 2 years, crews dismantled the ship, bringing in 6,000 tons of rocks to slow down erosion caused by its presence in the water. The salvage process faced a setback when, 19 months after the incident, the Golden Ray caught fire. Crews raced to prevent contaminants from entering the ocean, fearing the compromised structure might collapse. The Coast Guard finally declared the removal process complete in September 2021, marking the end of a challenging and costly chapter in maritime history. Ho Osaka. The Ho Osaka, echoing the challenges faced by the Golden Ray, encountered a maritime mishap in January 2015 near the Isle of Wight in Southampton in Britain. Loaded with Range Rovers, Jaguars, and Minis, the Singaporean vessel with a crew of 25 was bound for Germany after loading vehicles at Southampton. Shortly after departing on January 3, 2015, the Ho Osaka began listing, a situation where a ship takes on water and tilts to one side. Rescue teams swiftly intervened to save the crew. Similarly to the Golden Ray incident, cargo and ballast tank issues arose, exacerbated by inadequate record-keeping, rendering the ship unsuitable for ocean voyages. While the Ho Osaka managed to avoid sinking, nearly 30% of the vehicles on board suffered damage. Remarkably, within a month post-incident, the ship resumed its operations at sea. The episode serves as another reminder of the importance of proper cargo management and adherence to safety protocols to prevent maritime disasters. The MS Explorer. In November 2007, the MS Explorer, a Liberian-registered cruise ship, embarked on a 19-day expedition to the Falkland Islands and Antarctica, promising passengers glimpses of whales and penguins. Unfortunately, the journey took a perilous turn when the vessel struck ice near the South Shetland Islands off Antarctica's coast. With 154 people aboard, they efficiently evacuated 2 lifeboats, enduring freezing waters as they awaited rescue. A Norwegian cruise ship eventually spotted them, facilitating their transfer to a Chilean military base. The cruise company initially downplayed the incident, asserting that the ship sustained minor damage equivalent to a human fist. However, Argentine officials, upon inspection, contested this, deeming the damage more substantial than reported. The MS Explorer's sinking marked the first cruise ship disaster in the vicinity of Antarctica, highlighting the challenges posed by the icy waters and the importance of accurate incident assessment. Have you had the chance to explore a shipwreck? Let us know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Costa Concordia. The ill-fated journey of the Costa Concordia, Italy's largest cruise ship, unfolded on January 13, 2012, near Giglio Island. With its grand launch in 2005, the vessel spanned an impressive 951 feet and boasted luxurious amenities capable of accommodating over 2,400 passengers. As the Costa Concordia set sail in January 2012, it carried more than 3,000 passengers, alongside a crew of 1,023. The cruise took a disastrous turn when the ship, under the command of an Italian captain and an Indonesian crew, deviated from its usual course to sail close to Giglio Island, intending to offer a salute by sounding the ship's horn. A misunderstood command led to a collision with a reef, tearing a 174-foot hole in the ship. Subsequent events spiraled into chaos as water inundated the vessel, flooding the engine room, cutting power, and rendering the ship uncontrollable. The Costa Concordia listed precariously, taking on more water. A distress call from a passenger to their family signaled the gravity of the situation. The captain initially downplayed the incident when contacted by the Italian Coast Guard, but later admitted its severity, requesting tugboats for assistance. Amidst confusion, the exact timeline of events became unclear. The captain reportedly abandoned ship around 11:20 p.m. after lifeboats had already been launched. The rescue operation, hampered by the ship's tilt, necessitated evacuations via ladders. The captain, refusing orders to return, was later found on a lifeboat. Ultimately, the rescue efforts managed to save over 4,000 lives, but the tragedy claimed 32 victims, with one person never recovered. Legal proceedings ensued, implicating crew members and the ship's crisis coordinator in charges of manslaughter, leading to sentences of less than 3 years. The captain faced a separate trial, enduring nearly 2 years, resulting in a conviction on various charges including manslaughter and a 16-year prison sentence. The Costa Concordia disaster remains a haunting chapter in maritime history. The Bom Jesus, situated in southwest Africa, Namibia in 2008, became the stage for an unexpected discovery during a diamond excavation in the expansive Namib Desert. Unearthed amidst the desert sands were gold coins believed to be remnants of a 16th century shipwreck. This serendipitous find led to further excavations, eventually revealing what appeared to be the remnants of a centuries-old shipwreck. The significant historical potential of the site prompted the involvement of archaeologists, who eagerly delved into unraveling the mysteries hidden beneath the desert sands. The vessel in question, identified as the Bom Jesus, or the Good Jesus, was a Portuguese ship embarking on a journey laden with valuable cargo bound for India during the 16th century. Fate had a different plan, as the ship succumbed to the treacherous coastal waters of Namibia, leaving remnants scattered along the shoreline, now buried in the Namib Desert. Although the discovery of the wreckage was an intriguing development, confirming its identity as the Bom Jesus remains elusive. Historical records are scant, with limited references to the ship's loss found in a rare 16th century publication. The lack of comprehensive documentation adds an air of mystery to the findings. However, the artifacts recovered from the site align with the cargo typical of Portuguese vessels from that era, strengthening the hypothesis that this may indeed be the remnants of the ill-fated Bom Jesus. As ongoing research and analysis unfold, the Namib Desert continues to guard the secrets of this centuries-old maritime tale, waiting to unveil more about the mysterious shipwreck and its untold stories. The Edmund Fitzgerald. On the ominous night of November 10, 1975, the Great Lakes bore witness to one of its most notorious and contentious shipwrecks, forever etched in maritime history, the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald. This ill-fated vessel, measuring an imposing 729 feet and launched in June 1958, was once the crown jewel of the Great Lakes fleet, reigning as the largest ship until 1971. Tragedy struck the Edmund Fitzgerald during its final mission on November 9, 1975, as it set out to transport iron ore from Wisconsin to Zug Island near Detroit. The ship found itself ensnared in the clutches of a ferocious storm northwest of Whitefish Point, Michigan. Gale warnings and hurricane-force winds, reaching an alarming 90 miles per hour, battered the vessel, accompanied by monstrous 35-foot waves that relentlessly assailed the mighty Fitzgerald. During the perilous journey, communication with another ship on Lake Superior was maintained until around 7:10 p.m. on that fateful evening, when all contact was abruptly lost. A subsequent search of the lake unveiled a haunting scene: 2 lifeboats from the Fitzgerald, empty and adrift, alongside scattered debris. The ship had succumbed to the relentless forces of Lake Superior, plunging 535 feet below the surface. In May 1976, a U.S. Navy vessel embarked on a solemn mission to investigate the sunken wreckage of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Through meticulous efforts, they captured haunting images and video footage, shedding light on the somber resting place of this once mighty vessel. The tragic sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald stands as a poignant reminder of the unforgiving power that nature can unleash upon even the most formidable maritime giants. The German U-boat 1206. The U-boats, or German submarines, played a significant role in both World War I and World War II. Throughout World War II, Nazi Germany constructed a total of 1,162 U-boats, with a staggering 785 of them meeting their demise in the heat of battle. Among this fleet, one particular U-boat, the U-1206, embarked on a unique and ultimately astonishing journey that culminated in an unforeseen turn of events. Commissioned towards the end of World War II, U-boat 1206 boasted state-of-the-art features designed to enhance its prowess in sinking enemy vessels while remaining elusive to detection. Notably, its innovative design included a revolutionary toilet system that deviated from conventional submarine waste disposal methods. Instead of relying on a septic system, the U-boat incorporated a high-pressure mechanism that ejected waste directly into the water. This forward-thinking approach not only streamlined the vessel's internal space, but also showcased the engineers' commitment to maximizing efficiency. On April 14, 1945, U-boat 1206 submerged, and on the 9th day of its maiden mission, encountered a predicament that would seal its fate. The captain, seeking to utilize the novel toilet system, inadvertently set in motion a series of events that would lead to the submarine's demise. Unacquainted with the intricacies of the flush mechanism, he sought assistance from a crew member who, regrettably, turned the wrong valve. The submarine began filling up with water and human waste, escalating into a dire situation. As water infiltrated the battery compartment, it triggered the release of toxic chlorine gas, forcing the captain's hand to bring U-boat 1206 to the surface. However, surfacing presented a new set of challenges, as the British military plane promptly detected the U-boat and initiated an attack. Faced with imminent danger, the captain made a harrowing decision to abandon ship, ensuring the destruction of critical equipment to prevent British capture. In 2012, a diving crew ventured to explore the wreckage of U-boat 1206, finding the submarine remarkably preserved. Intriguingly, the status of the innovative toilet system remained unexplored, leaving a peculiar element of the U-boat story untouched. The saga of U-boat 1206 serves as a captivating episode, blending technological innovation, unforeseen mishaps, and the relentless realities of wartime naval warfare. The Kexsburg UFO Incident. Kexsburg is a tiny community that's situated south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. During the evening hours of December 9, 1965, the residents of Kexsburg noticed a bizarre fireball in the sky. The object was spotted at around 5:15 p.m., and residents claimed that it looked like a giant acorn. The fireball then crashed into the woods, but before the community could figure out what happened, the area was surrounded by the police and members of the military. And Kexsburg wasn't the only place to see something strange in the sky that evening. People from California to New York claimed to have seen a strange fireball in the sky. Reports from Michigan and Ontario, Canada claimed that they too saw the object. They said that they saw debris falling from it and it soared over the communities. And in some cases, the debris had started several fires. It was originally reported in the press that a meteorite had hit the Kexsburg area. The director of a Pennsylvania observatory supported the claim. The director explained that a Geminid meteor shower was expected during the late hours of December 9th. And an astronomer from the University of Michigan echoed the statement in another newspaper article. Meanwhile, Kexsburg residents claimed to have heard some sort of shock wave on the day in question. The director of the observatory mentioned that the same thing had happened in the area in 1938 during another meteor shower. Residents of Kexsburg were skeptical of the meteorite claim. Some citizens told local newspapers that a strange blue light had descended on the area where the crash occurred, and then it simply vanished. There are some in Kexsburg that believe it was a UFO that crashed and not a meteorite. Those who saw the acorn-shaped object said it was 12 feet in length and was roughly 7 feet in diameter. One man who claimed to have seen the object reported that it had what appeared to be something resembling Egyptian hieroglyphics inscribed onto it. But the man said that he couldn't get a great view because he was quickly removed from the crash site by law enforcement. The incident led to UFO enthusiasts descending upon the community to find out what happened. Then, nearly 30 years after the strange object crashed in Kexsburg, the story was featured on the television series Unsolved Mysteries. The Unsolved Mysteries episode, and some later newspaper articles, gave the Kexsburg side of the story that wasn't told in 1965. People from the town claimed that when the military was in the area, they removed a car from a resident for some strange reason. The townsfolk were also informed that the acorn-shaped object was transported to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. That's the same base where the Roswell, New Mexico crash debris was reportedly taken for observation. Also, Wright-Patterson at one time may or may not have had the remains of aliens stored in a base laboratory. Those who've studied the Kexsburg incident believe it's the second Roswell event in UFO history. It was 1995 when the US government stated that the military was by no means involved with the 1965 investigation at Kexsburg. Citizens disputed that claim, though, because they saw military personnel and vehicles in their community following the crash. Another theory that emerged after the incident was that the acorn-shaped object was a Soviet spacecraft known as Cosmos 96. It was designed to explore the planet Venus, but Cosmos 96 failed and came crashing back to Earth on December 9, 1965. It's believed that it crashed in Kexsburg and that the military wanted the spacecraft so they could review the technology the Soviets were using for their space program. If the US had done this, they would have violated an international law they signed in 1962 with the Soviets. The agreement stated that if something from one country would crash in another, then the debris belonged to the country where it originated. The Cosmos 96 theory has been disputed because it was reported that the spacecraft crashed in Canada. However, the wreckage was apparently never recovered. Russians were asked about the 1965 crash during the 1990s, and they were of the opinion that it was some inferior piece of American-made equipment they were too embarrassed to disclose to the public. A documentary about the event was released in 1995 and was titled Kexsburg: The Untold Story. In 2009, it was reported that an investigative journalist used the Freedom of Information Act (FOIA) process to gather information from the US government about the incident. The reporter received documentation, and after their review, it was determined that there was no smoking gun regarding a UFO crash. However, the documents, according to the journalist, contradicted themselves. Also, some key documents were reportedly destroyed or signed out and were never returned. But after reviewing the documents, the journalist wasn't sold on a UFO crash or a Soviet spacecraft cover-up. What truly happened is still a mystery, and in commemoration of the event, the people of Kexsburg have a UFO festival every year. They even have a UFO store in town. Do you have a favorite unexplained mystery? Would you like to see more videos on subjects like this one? Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification for updates regarding new videos. The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 left Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for Beijing, China on March 8, 2014. There were 239 passengers and crew on board the flight, but the plane never made it to its destination. Instead, it disappeared off the face of the Earth. So what really happened to Flight 370? Flight 370 left Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. It was a Boeing 777, and the captain was Zahari Ahmad Shah, who was accompanied by his first officer, Farik Abdul Hamid, in the cockpit. The plane took off and went on its scheduled flight path toward Beijing. And as Flight 370 crossed the South China Sea at around 1:19 a.m., they made a routine call to air traffic control in Malaysia. Flight 370 was then instructed to get in contact with air traffic control in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, because they were about to enter their airspace. But a few minutes later, Flight 370 disappeared from radar completely. The flight not showing up on radar indicates a possible malfunction of the transponders on the plane. Another possibility is that they were shut off directly by someone on the flight. Although air traffic control wasn't able to get a visual on the plane due to the transponder, it was picked up by the Malaysian military's radar system, and what they discovered was baffling. Flight 370 was to take a northeasterly path to Beijing, but when Flight 370 crossed into the South China Sea, it took an unexpected left and flew back across the mainland of Malaysia. It flew by Penang, an island off the west coast of Malaysia, and made another odd turn toward the northwest of the Andaman Sea. The flight continued that path, but from there, it totally vanished, never making it to Beijing. So how could this flight be lost to air traffic control? Planes at the time weren't using up-to-date technology. Many planes were tracked with radar instead of GPS. GPS wasn't the perfect solution, but it would have given investigators and air traffic controllers a better final location of the aircraft. A search for the plane was underway, and the focus was the South China Sea. Numerous countries aided in the search, and days after the disappearance, the Malaysian military shared what they knew about the strange flight pattern. This meant that the Andaman Sea should also be searched for wreckage. Those involved in the search went as far as the Bay of Bengal near India and Bangladesh, but nothing was found in the water as far as the wreckage was concerned. Then, a major curveball was thrown at the families and rescue workers. Flight 370 had satellite communication records, and those were looked over for clues. Satellite communications for Flight 370 were linked to a station in Perth, Australia. This data uncovered some shocking evidence. The satellite communication link was disrupted for a few minutes after it made the odd left turn, but was restored for nearly 6 hours. Flight 370 had enough fuel for a 6-hour flight, but not even a drop more. The satellite information was very important. It gave researchers an area to determine the final destination of Flight 370. 2 arcs were determined to be the best possible locations. One arc went southwest from Malaysia into the Indian Ocean, while the other arc went northwest from China into Central Asia. The southwest path was examined over the Indian Ocean. If the plane crashed on land using the northwest arc, then someone would have reported something. The waters of the Indian Ocean were combed, and there was nothing found. The families were extremely upset, as there seemed to be nothing in the way of debris. However, a clue was discovered in July 2015 on the island of Réunion, which is situated east of Madagascar. This was 2,300 miles west of the southwest path in the Indian Ocean. More debris was found on Madagascar and the southeastern coast of Africa. There were a total of 27 pieces believed to be from Flight 370. And after examining the pieces, 17 of them were confirmed to have originated from the missing plane. A final report was provided in July 2018 by the Malaysian government. They believed that the plane changed course due to someone at the controls and nothing mechanical. However, they had no explanation of what happened to the flight. Theories about the disappearance vary, but some fingers have been pointed at Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. And the most damning evidence was found on a flight simulator that Shah had in his home. It was reported that Shah's computer was investigated, and he apparently flew a simulated course similar to Flight 370. This was reportedly done 1 month before the aircraft disappeared. This evidence has raised the question if Shah committed some sort of mass suicide by taking down the plane in a remote location in the Indian Ocean. Some dispute this claim, though, saying that Shah was living a good life and had a wonderful family. Another theory is that the plane lost cabin pressure and that the oxygen masks didn't properly deploy. If that happened, people would have passed out on the plane, including the captain and co-pilot. Some believe that this happened while the plane was on autopilot, but again, this is just a theory. The mystery of Flight 370 is almost 10 years old, and it remains unsolved. It's perhaps the biggest aviation mystery since the disappearance of the plane piloted by Amelia Earhart. The Max Headroom Hijack. 2 Chicago news stations had their signals hijacked on November 22, 1987. A man wearing a mask of iconic 1980s pop culture sensation Max Headroom gave viewers something they'll never forget. News stations WGN and WTTW were the victims of this stunt, and the culprit remains unknown to this very day. If you're not familiar with Max Headroom, he was a comedy character that was computer-generated. He was popular with young people and was even a spokesperson for Coca-Cola. So what exactly happened? WGN was airing their 9 o'clock news on November 22nd. Dan Rowan, their sportscaster, was providing the highlights of the game between the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions from earlier in the day. Bears players were being interviewed and key plays from the game were shown. Then, everything went black. A man wearing a Max Headroom mask appeared on the screen. There was nothing in the way of clear audio. It was more like garbled electronic noise. A figure on the screen was moving back and forth in a motion that resembled laughing. It was absolutely bizarre, and the incident lasted less than 30 seconds. But things weren't exactly over. The screen went black again, and then Dan Rowan suddenly appeared. He was laughing and told viewers that he had no idea what happened. Rowan would then blame a computer at WGN for going wild and causing a disruption. Things went back to normal at WGN after that, but that wasn't the only signal hijacking that occurred that evening. WTTW was the local Chicago PBS station, and at 11 o'clock p.m. that same day, they were airing an old episode of Doctor Who. This time, the hijacker cut right into the episode. Another difference was that the audio was somewhat clear. Max Headroom was back, but the hijack would be longer than what happened at WGN. Max would say things, but his audio was distorted and hard to hear. The name Chuck Swirsky was mentioned, and he was a sportscaster on WGN. He also performed some NSFW antics, including exposing his backside on camera. And on another occasion, he held a can of Pepsi to mock Headroom's Coca-Cola sponsorship. Staff at WTTW were shocked and frustrated. Their station was hijacked and they couldn't figure out a way to get Max Headroom off their air. An engineer wasn't in the building, so those working the late shift were frantically pressing any button possible to rid themselves of the Headroom craziness. It was 90 seconds of Max Headroom madness that crossed the boundaries of decency standards before Doctor Who returned to the air. Chicago had a real mystery on their hands. And the question on everybody's lips was, who hijacked the stations and why? The story made national headlines immediately. The Federal Communications Commission wasn't pleased, and they decided to launch a full investigation. What happened at WGN and WTTW was illegal and was considered piracy. Whoever performed this stunt had to understand the basics of hijacking a television station. They had to be set up somewhere in downtown Chicago near the transmitters for the two stations to pull it off successfully. The person behind it could have been fined $10,000 and likely would have been sent to prison for a year. but the hijacker was never caught or identified. 1 year before the Max Headroom incident, HBO was hijacked by someone named Captain Midnight. This hijacking was a message that appeared on the screen complaining about how people with private satellite dishes had their HBO signals scrambled. An investigation was launched, and the culprit was found to be John McDougal from Ocala, Florida. McDougal was put on probation for a year and had to pay a fine of $5,000. By then, people were still trying to put a name to the WGN and WTTW hijackings. A few names were mentioned around town, but there was no evidence to lead to an arrest. The Max Headroom hijacking lives on in Chicago folklore to this very day. What similar topics would you like for us to cover in upcoming episodes? Let us know down below in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!